The Book of Andrew. If you keep an open mind, from whichever religion or creed you come from, I can unite them all here and now. You would say such a thing is impossible. And this will be highly controversial. But it is my story. My sermon that follows this is about the taking of the wound in 1999 from the book of Isaiah. And I will go into depth about that and what I'd like to accomplish in this world for all of us, who I'd like all of us to be as people to each other. This is my Jesus story. I took a terrible wound in '99. I will go into detail of that later. But I suffered for 2 decades. 15 years into this suffering, in the year 2015, I had reached a place of limits. We all have limits. And I had fought against it, the good fight, for long enough. And I had no resources as much as I had a good career. I was eligible for total disability in the state of Colorado, but I did not want that. You can't be the man you want to be if you take disability, and I guess I had more honor or something. As much as this dark place of the story will be dishonorable on some level. For those of you who are hurting, don't do what I'm about to say, and if what I tell you here doesn't come to fruition, don't do it. But I was suicidal. I decided I was going to take my life in 2015, December. And I was going to drive to Black Canyon of the Gunnison, this high cliff I knew about, where I could jump off of and fly. And people have stories of car accidents where Jesus comes to save them, or an angel or such. What happened to me was I was ready to go to Black Canyon of the Gunnison. It was time to leave. And I was sitting on my couch in Boulder, and I cried out for God, please help me. That's what happens in these car accidents. People cry out for God to help them. If you ask for God to help you right now, God's not going to help you with anything. I think your life really needs to be in danger for this to be the case. And even then, you need to be a good person. So, my life was in danger. And I called for God to cry out. And Jesus Christ, made of pure blue light, walked through my plate glass door to my balcony. And I couldn't tell if it was Jesus Christ or myself in 10,000 years made of light as some kind of time traveler. I'm telling you, in that moment, I couldn't tell the difference between the two. But Jesus walked up to me. He placed his hand on my head where it hurt the most. And I fell asleep. And from thereafter, I picked up my life and moved on again. I was saved by Jesus. But the interesting thing is, again, I couldn't tell the difference. Now, the difference between Judaism and Christianity is, in Judaism, Jesus was the Son of God, just like in Christianity. But the Jews differ in Christianity in their interpretation of the book of Isaiah, which on some level has converted me to Judaism as much as I was raised Christian, and I'm about to unite them all here. So the Jews believed this man in the future, a son of man. See, a man born of ordinary circumstance. An ordinary man and woman, an ordinary man, lives an ordinary young life, and then he takes the wound, a terrible wound, and it is covered up to protect sin itself by those who have wounded him. In my next sermon, I will go into this, but my story matches that of Isaiah. And if the Christians believe there can only be one Messiah, where the Jews believe there was Jesus and Messiah is another man, if the Christians believe there can be only one, well, I'm telling you, I don't know. Maybe the real Andrew Brissette died that day. Maybe Jesus became me. I want to believe Jesus is a blue light that will come to you in your darkest hour. I cannot do that here on this plane. However, I was gifted last summer this iron rod by a friend of Viking descent. I saw it. He told me it was his prized possession, but it belonged to me. It's a fire poker, but I take it to sea at night, stand in the ocean to become strong. This is the iron rod from Revelation. The ruler of nations for 1,000 years of peace will do so with an iron rod. Jesus never had an iron rod. I have an iron rod. There is a reason I call myself Andrew Messiah now. Because my story matches the book of Isaiah. And I met God, and it called me royalty, Ra. And the following morning, the red heifer was born. The same day I told my brother, I am Messiah. Now I took a terrible wound 20 years ago, and I am nearly better now, all the way well. I have already picked out a cripple. I am working on her. She doesn't want me to touch her, but I need to touch her. I need to put my hands directly on her like I did my grandpa. My grandpa was dying. He said, Jan, let me die. She's a triage nurse for 30 years. I came in the room and swirled my hands like he taught me. I put my hand on his bedsore and another on his arm, and he fell asleep like I did when Jesus came to see me. Jan called me 2 hours later. She said, Grandpa is up. He has passed 2 kidney stones. And he says he's feeling better. He lived another 3 months. I'm very proud of that. And I would say the most interesting factor is my grandfather took a blood test and found out he was 2% Jewish. Yes, the line of King David, Moshiach ben David. Yes, my story matches, and I will go into many details of how my story matches. I don't know that I will be able to heal people, but I want to. It's a deep-seated desire. I spent years befriending a blind man, John. I'm hoping one day somehow I could swirl my hands and let him see the light, at least the light. Now on to Buddhism. See, the Buddhists believe there is this world, this wheel of karma in the world. We all live a variance of suffering or heaven and hell, bliss or not, based on our current and past actions of past lives. In Christianity and Judaism, we believe in heaven and hell. You know, where the bad go and where the good go. But this is the same as Buddhism. And so, I had a recurrent nightmare as a child. It was of a train crash. And I think it was in the year 2012, I did a lot of research on open air train car crashes, and I found a story that matches. It was from May of 1880 in Santa Cruz, California. Exactly as my dream. A train is going up a grade and it loses control. It's going too fast. And there's a mountain off to the left. And as we approach the mountain where the tunnel is, we crash into the tunnel. And then I float up. Well, this happened in May of 1880. And so, based on that, and there are many children out there. There is a professor at, I believe, the University of Virginia that has documented over 500 cases of children that have these dreams that match some story from history that he finds. This is what the Buddhists teach. Okay? And I find the most interesting factor is that 1880, I was born here in 1981. That's a 101-year span. So either I lived a whole lifetime, or several, or I hung out in heaven, or maybe hell. I don't think hell, but but maybe. I'm telling you, what you do here matters. Okay? What the Buddhists teach is if you suffer greatly in this life, if you keep a good attitude, and if you do well to others, you will be reborn into a better life. This is the same as the Christian and Judaic heaven. Okay? And they believe if you've been born into bliss, heaven, you know, all the riches and all that, and you do wrong with it, then you revert to the bottom of the karma wheel, which is absolute suffering. It may be why innocent babies are burned in fires, and I hate to say that, but it is what the Buddhists believe, and it is heaven and hell, and maybe they are right here. You see it every day. There are people living in heaven and hell. I live on the beach, not in a $20 million mansion. That would be like heaven. Now I live with the other displaced people. Not really the hell of Skid Row, but somewhere in between. Now, just yesterday, I should have turned my phone off. Just yesterday, I watched a man lose his life on the beach. It was very sad. Of course, it was a political message. Vote for whoever. That is why I'm talking right now. This left-right split. I don't want to risk everything I've been working on. I was a businessman and an artist. But this has been building inside me for 2 years, 3 years now. I have to speak my truth because the country is too divided. I could say it is that man of sin, my polar opposite Trump, that has divided it, but I wish for those who follow him to come back to me. And I do not believe it is either Trump or Biden that can unite the nation again, and if the shots ring out, and I fear they will, neither of these men can say stand down in an effective tone, the roar of lion. And you want to know where I'm going to roar? I'm going to do it at Sedona like I dreamed of, but I'm going to do it at the bottom of Black Canyon of the Gunnison. Yeah, where I was going to fly to. I'm going to go there. And I'm going to yell, ceasefire. It's going to scare the women and the children and the elderly, but I'm hoping the men will stand down and they will hear that roar and they'll think, when they hear Don Jr.'s hyena cackle and that of Daddy Trump, oh no, those are hyenas. Those are hyenas who ruined our great country. Because once the shots ring out, we're not a first world country anymore. And they already are ringing out. And I am here. Yeah, it's exactly as it should be. Some of you will not believe in me. Some of you will call me awful names. Don't do this. It's not so much I that will judge you, it is the light. I have suffered beyond measure in this lifetime. You would never want even the smallest, tiniest fraction or modicum thereof. Be good to your neighbors. We're going to try a new route. It's called Be Good to Each Other. And unfortunately, as usual, the man of sin mocks me. I made my other sermon about taking the wound. It goes greatly into who I'd like men and women to be to each other. And of course, he mocks me. I held up that Bible for that only time of my life and behind a disaster zone, and he gassed those people and held up a Bible behind a church, and no one made any sense of it. Well, it makes perfect sense when you take into my story that he, the Antichrist, pulls the wool over the people's eyes, as 2 Thessalonians 2 teaches. An eagle follows me around. It sleeps in the trees above me when I sleep in the mountains. And I have video of that, and I called myself warrior. Within 6 hours again, the Trump campaign had changed their entire campaign. Donald Trump is a warrior. Well, not so much as me. See, he faked bone spurs. I took the biblical wound. Yeah. And I know that whole Jesus part is going to scare some people. It shouldn't. I'm telling you, I'm Andrew Messiah. And with the tiniest little bit of faith, if there can only be one, then fine. He became me. But I'm telling you, he's more likely with me. As he is well with you. Just need the Christians to take that tiniest bit of faith and leap. And I can unite Christianity with Judaism and Buddhism and Islam. They all are waiting for this. And I'm very proud to be making these sermons now. I am food insecure and shelter insecure, and everything's falling apart except it's falling together. It's exactly as in Zechariah. I'm reduced to poverty, riding in on a donkey. In the 21st century, it's not a donkey. I don't drive a truck. That would be a horse. I drive a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and it has a hitch basket and a roof rack and a box up there. It is a donkey. It's a 21st century donkey. And that's how I live as a nomad now. It's the only way to keep my company alive. And what my company, Radikai, is going to become, that's why he always says the radical left, the radical left. No, man, there are two definitions of radical. One is extreme, radical. The other is radical, man. Radical. From the 80s and 90s. Radical, dude. It's like surfer skateboarder talk. Radical means cool. Don't let that man of sin tell you what's cool. He only tells you how to hate and how to be divided against your neighbor. Before he came on the scene, my high school friends and I had better respect for each other. It's that simple. And I am going to unite them and us and all of us. I'm tired of Don Jr.'s cackle telling the men he should be like him. A whiny little baby. My father, my father. Shut up. Messiah says shut up. I'm tired of it. Aren't you all just tired of their example? I know some of you look at them as these great beings, but when you look upon me, don't I look like him? The one? Yeah. Believe in me as I believe in you. I believe all of you have goodness inside of you that is willing to explode out of you. We live in a hateful, cynical world, and it doesn't have to be that way. And the example I want to set is very simple. We're going to give people food security and shelter security. And if they have food and shelter security, they will have their dignity. And if people have their dignity, I think everyone will be more decent to each other. There will be less of this divide between the haves and the have-nots. There will be more collective respect. And I think people will always seek drugs, but I think the bad drugs, the really nasty ones on the streets, they'll seek that less because there will always be that population we just can't break through to. But I think there will be less of them if we give everyone back their decency. And these words, socialism, needs to be... It's just become such a dirty word, and it's not a dirty thing. The roads you drive on are socialism. I'm shooting this from a national park. That's socialism. Don't you like socialism? I got here on roads without potholes. And I'm shooting on this beautiful land because we preserved it this way. Don't you see? Don't you want to live in a world where the air is clean and the water is pure? Your children can grow up without being shot to death by weapons designed for war. Everyone should have a musket like the founding fathers wanted, but if you have a legitimate hog problem on your farm, then I want you to have an AR-15, but you need the proper training and the license, and then everyone else... We're going to melt them in fires. And I'll tell you why. Do you really think as the future progresses, these weapons of flesh-maiming war are really going to stop our own weapons? We're about to have lasers, man. I mean, my God. Are we going to go there? You know, the public should have laser weapons? No. Okay? You're going to be able to have a musket at your door. That's what the founding fathers wanted. And everything else is for military use until we remove the standing armies of every country and there is peace. Yeah, we're going to get to that. I can imagine a world where, man, we just had resources stockpiled and ready to go in every major area. If there were a solar flare, it'd be only 2 weeks downtime. We'd have a transformer near every transformer. It'd be buried in the ground, ready to put up. We wouldn't have to wait 10 years for our society to, fall completely apart. We could spend less on the weapons of war and more on the prosperity of peace. Everywhere this could be done. And we're going to get there. But I think the main paradigm towards that is have got to stop thinking in these gangland terms of left and right, Republican and Democrat. No, we're all Americans and we're all citizens of the earth. He set a very bad example that I need to correct. And this is some of the beginning of doing that. Thank you for listening.